So anyway, I was invited to share my journey of my first year as a loan officer because I have only been a loan officer for 1 year. And it's been a pretty crazy experience. I did just hit my 20-year mark in the industry, but for 19 of those years, I was LOA to a high producing branch manager, up until he retired last January. Um, Now, it wasn't a normal or easy way for him to retire because it was due to an illness. Um, he never hinted that it was coming. We had no warning, which I tease him about all the time because, after talking to the guy 20 times a day for almost 20 years, you'd think he would have given me a heads up this was coming, but he didn't. So none of us were expecting it. He broke the news to us less than a week before his last day. So there was zero preparation or plan for it. Um, and the nature of his retirement was, it was more of a medical leave. So there was no way to put out an official announcement. We couldn't send an email blast, do anything on Facebook. He was technically still an employee, but just kind of like cut off. He didn't tell any of his referral partners or clients or anybody, just our team, and then he was done. So it was kind of heartbreaking. But of course, that put a massive life decision into motion for me. And I had 5 days to make that decision. Do I want to become an originator or stay in LOA? And I really loved being an LOA. I was good at it. I had a good salary. And I was very comfortable behind the computer and behind the phone. Sales did scare the heck out of me. It was a whole career change. It was going to affect my income. It was going to affect my family. And I'm the biggest introvert you'll meet. If you already can't sense that, I'm already nervous, here in front of all of you. Super shy and awkward and mega self-conscious. So something that's going to take a lot of courage that I didn't think I had. But I did have a lot of support and encouragement from John, my branch manager, as well as Ken and Stacy and some of the other crew on our team. So when I was making the decision, I did a lot of math, and I thought if I could retain maybe 30% of John's agents, I should be able to write enough to at least make my LOA salary and stay comfortable.
Hey, Katy,
That was my.
Hey, Katy, sorry, I really don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to just share one thing as you go through this, people I know it, is the reason I asked Katy to do this. She's been a loan officer for a year. She lives in a city that is new, that she moved to Lancaster, where she knew nobody. She has 13 loans in her pipeline right now. 13 loans in her pipeline. And I was so impressed with Katy's ability to just keep moving forward. So with that context, Katy, please continue. But I think it's important as people hear that, like, where you started from a year ago with all this fear to now having 13 loans in your pipeline. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and that was not my goal. My goal was just to I think I was like, I told Ken, if I could do 10 to 12 million, I'm good with that. And I gave myself 1 year. I kind of begged for assurance that if it didn't work out, could I have my old LOA position back? And I just kind of approached it with a save what you can and survive attitude. But when I told John, my branch manager, that I wanted to do it, he told me how happy that made him. And that's what made me want to try. I love him like a father, and I didn't want to let him down. So I tried. I had to call as many realtors as I could as quickly as possible, because I also had LOs in my branch asking about those realtors. Once the word got out, I knew the in-house lenders would be all over those agents. So I had one phone call to break the news about John, get them to change how they viewed me, convince them that I was capable when I didn't really think I was. Honestly, I wish I had the Princeton selling system back at that time. I was at Round Point Mortgage when all this went down. But I did it. I had Ken as my personal mortgage coach. He had to sell me on my value every single day. And I pretended I was an actress delivering lines when I made the phone calls, and it worked. And I was able to convert the majority of John's agents. The ones I didn't convert are really not important agents to me. They might be good for a lead or two a year that may never close. So in 6 months' time, I was kind of in a really good flow, and I had good production. And then that's when our company closed the doors on us again with 1 week to figure out where to go. I had 2 offers. One was with Homebridge with my regional manager, and then the other one was with Princeton and Ken here. So it was another big, massive life decision. And I'm like, great, now I've got to tell all of these realtors I'm leaving after I sold them how, everything's going to be perfect. I worked for 8 or 9 mortgage companies over my career, and I really never cared what company I worked for. I didn't research any of the company. I just didn't care. I only cared that I worked for John, who's the best boss on the planet. So in making my decision, have you ever seen a high producing loan officer follow an ops person to a company? Because that's what I did. I honestly waited for Stacy to see where she was going. And when I found out she was going to Princeton, I signed my offer letter because she's the vital person in my production. And coming to Princeton was exactly what I needed. It took me a little bit, and probably wasn't until October when it finally kicked in that I wanted to expand my business and do more and try harder and grow. October, when the market was a dumpster fire. But that's when all the sales trainings for me started kicking in. When the power hours started, just seeing the vibe that everybody was, not giving up. I started to feel the passion too that everybody else here at Princeton had. It's also when the conversations with the realtors for me were starting to change, because they were looking to me for my opinion and my advice on the market. And they saw me as an expert, which I never thought of myself as an expert. So that felt good. And it just kind of changed something in me. So I started trying harder and really made an effort to grow. And my big thing is, all my business is in Philadelphia. And since I live in Lancaster, I'm 75 miles from Philly. I go to all my closings. So I'm driving an hour and a half to every settlement. I'm meeting realtors in Philly, for coffee, trying to keep those agents. And if I'm going to grow my business, I'm going to grow it locally. I'm tired of driving that far. But I know nobody out here in Lancaster. I've only been here for 4 years. But one of my proudest moments was also in October, with kind of my first successful collision. It was a slow October day because of the market, and there was a community like town fair down the road from me. So I took my kids, I met my neighbor over at the town fair where there's like pigs and cows and tractors and everything. And there were a whole bunch of vendors there with little tables set up. And there were a couple of realtors I noticed that looked extremely bored at their table. Nobody was going up to their table. So I decided to give myself some courage and just approach them. I had the messy mom look on, the kids were wild, but I'm like, what's the worst case that can happen? I might as well do this. I'm just going to say hi. I went over and said hi. They were really lovely. I gave them my card. I was only talking to them for maybe a minute and a half. I asked them, I said, I'd love to meet you guys. At some point we could sit down and talk. And I joked about the kids, being wild and everything. And that was it. I sent them an email next day. I asked them if I could meet them or their team. And they invited me to their team sales meeting with 9 agents. I went to that meeting and I talked with them for 2 hours. I didn't have a format. I didn't have a PowerPoint. I didn't have a plan. I just went to planning to just introduce myself, tell them what I do, what Princeton does. And they were so engaging and so lovely. And they kept me there for 2 hours. After that, I put them all on the 13 for 30. I friended them all on Facebook. I brought my kids to their Halloween event. I scheduled one-on-ones, and I just kept my name in front of them as much as possible. One told me, he's like, I love my guy. I'm not looking for anybody new, but it's really nice to meet you. And I hope that you get, somebody to work with. Like, he's really honest. And he said this in front of his whole crew. I still send him emails, shoot him little hellos, whatever I can do. But after that, 3 of them invited me to co-host an event at their office. So I went to their office for the event. They didn't have much of a turnout. They didn't do a great job promoting it, but I went for them. I closed my first loan with that team in March. That March customer referred me his brother for a refi who I plan to lock today. It's live. I had a lead put in an offer last night from that team. I've received 9 leads from them this year, including one of the agents herself who personally applied for pre-approval for an investment property. I'm a work in progress. I'm not a model salesperson. I've only been doing it for a year. I'm still scared, awkward, and nervous. I can't bring myself to make 4 calls yet, but I know what I need to do. I'm going to keep trying. I have a list of 4 calls that I'd like to make, and I'm just going to, one day I will do it. I say yes to things I don't necessarily want to do, like speaking in front of the whole team. But that's my story.
Thank you, Katy.
Katy, I think it's incredible that you shared that, and it's super inspirational for me as an LOA.
Thank you.
Because I do not like the spotlight on myself, and I prefer to be an LOA forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that may not always be an option. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks.
I back it. I find you inspiring, Katy. Here's what I wrote down. I pretended I was an actor. And I wrote down, I say yes to things I don't want to do. Right? We've been talking about, to be in the 1%, you have to do the things the 99% won't do. And the secret to success is doing the things that failures don't want to do. Katy, were you like shaking before today's meeting?
I still am. My hands are super sweaty.
Right? Shaking.
I read that, if you couldn't tell.
She did the work. She put it in. Princeton selling system, the 13 by 30s, and do it. What we're seeing, guys, is in this market. And by the way, this is the market. This is it. I said it on Friday last week. The lock-in effect is real. We're at like a $1.5 trillion real estate market. At some point, it's going to go up, but I think for the foreseeable future, this is it. And so those that adjust to this and meet the moment are growing. Natalia, you're on. I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot a little bit. You there?
Go for it. I'm here.
Okay. Guys, Natalia was Natalia worked in a real estate office, right? As the real estate office admin. Do I have that right, Natalia?
Yes, I was there for, I think, about 2 years.
Okay. And then Fred recruited you over to be his admin, right?
Yeah, I was already with Princeton, but I wasn't producing. I basically just held my license here. And after I had my son, I was looking to come back for the mortgage side, like full capacity, especially since we were in the middle of a pandemic. I was not comfortable going back to the office with a newborn at home. So I was looking at my options, and I actually, I got approached by a different loan officer at a totally different company who offered me the position first. And then I happened to reach out to Fred and let him know. I'm like, I don't know if I should make the switch. And he's like, well, I'm actually looking for an LOA, and we already work so well together. So it kind of worked out perfectly.
And you moved to a new geography, right? You're down in Virginia now, where you know nobody. And Natalia has 9 loans in her pipeline right now. Okay? Natalia, it's incredible.
Thank you.